Welcome back to She Chose Joy, where we discuss all things love, peace, wellness, and joy. I'm your host, Melanie Foote-Davis, also known as the Soul Whisperer. Today's episode is really a juicy dive. Our guest, Elena Orth, is a somatic coach, a yoga practitioner, an architect, a Reiki practitioner, a Shiatsu bodyworker, and a writer. And today she shares how she managed to walk through the shadows of darkness to find her light, her path to experiencing whispers that suddenly became screams, and how that all led her to a dream place in the world where she gets to see how the ocean meets the cliffs every day. So let's dive in. Let's go. Grab your hydration, grab your note taker or something to capture what resonates with you, and let's get in. Hello, 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 and welcome to She Chose Joy.
Thank you.
This has been, if you all only knew the shenanigans that were going on before we began this recording, behind the scenes would be hilarious. Um, I'm super excited about this conversation today. And today has just been one of those days, right? Um, it's been storming like thunder and lightning throughout the day. My mood has been a little wonky. I've been running behind schedule, having technical challenges, all of these different things. And one of the things that gave me comfort was knowing that I was going to be speaking with you.
Aw,
Um, yeah, like we have a rhythm and a way of being with each other that there was something where I knew my heart knew that no matter what happened with the technology, that there was going to be grace present. And so I
thank
just want to say I appreciate you.
thank you, Melanie. Thank you for saying that. It lands right in my body. And funnily enough, I also had quite a stormy day with lots of rain. And matching actually to what you just said about the technology, also very unpredictable changes. Blue skies to torrential rain in a heartbeat. So technically my nervous system should have been quite all over the place, but no, it wasn't. I had it in my calendar to meet you, and it kind of yeah, it put a little shield over over the craziness of the weather, and I just knew, no, I'll meet you, and we'll somehow get through to each other, no matter the technology or not.
And how ironic is it that it's and just for the listeners to know, like, where are you calling in from?
I am calling in from Portugal, and I'm so happy to say that. I can never get the smile off my face when I tell people where I live because I moved here a few years ago, and it's my favorite place on earth. It's the southwest of Portugal, in close to the coast, in a natural park where the ocean meets the cliffs and the sand meets the sea. So yeah, that's
Mm,
mm.
that sounds quite nourishing for my soul. You said where the cliffs meet the sea.
Mm. Yeah, and since you're inviting this back, I will give you my latest musings about this meeting point. I was asking myself, I like to sit there, on the rocks. We have these amazing views, and you can, within a 10-minute car drive, I can pick from a few different sweet spots where I can sit on the top of the high cliffs and I can watch the horizon.
Mm.
And I was thinking the other day, wow, the ocean meets the cliffs and it's shaping the rock. The water shapes the rock. And then I thought, wait a second, or is the rock shaping the water? And I don't know, I just find it fascinating how in these simple things we are always getting invited, and especially with nature, we're always getting invited to, there's no end solution or no end explanation to anything. You can always switch around and get a new perspective of things. So maybe that's what I like so much about here, that every day in the simpleness of nature, I get inspired by something new. So yeah.
Yeah, I knew when you said that that's the story you were going to share because we were having that conversation together, right? About the shape of things and what shapes how our world is shaped and how we are shaped. And so you mentioned it's one of your favorite places in the world, and that's one of the possible reasons. What's another one that makes it your favorite place?
Oh, it's such a deep reason that I can't even put very clear words to it. I think it's the result of a journey that makes it so special. I love it so much here because I made it here. You know, I've been born in Germany, so I come from Germany, but the way here was not a direct journey. It was not, okay, today I pack my bags and I move to this specific place. I would even say it was like almost a 7 to 10 year cycle journey that over so many roundabouts and distractions and other parts brought me here. And and now I'm here and I feel like, wow, I made this. I made it here.
Yeah.
That's why I love it so much, because it's mine. No other place could be like that, because this is the place that called me, and then that pulled me, and it kept pulling me, and now it holds me. So yeah.
Let me run that back. It called you, it pulled you, and now it holds you.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be with that for a moment.
And I can
It
even
says so little and yet so much at the same time. Yeah.
yeah. And I even realize how living here at this specific town, this specific area, since now almost 2 years, I feel it's almost the first time I really, really heard my exhale, like this, this settling kind of feeling. And that's funny because I'm a yoga teacher and I know a lot about breath, and I always thought I know how to breathe. I know all about the breath release and all of that. But to actually experience that in my own body without doing it, without facilitating, without practicing it, it just happens. And it's something really special. I haven't found that anywhere else. So I think I'm going to stay here.
Yeah. What prompted you to notice that that was the first time you felt that?
To be honest, I think it was during a somatic session, and I was doing it with a friend, and we were actually not talking about the place in particular. We talked about, I can't even remember what the topic was. It was some inner exploration of sorts, and something that I was bringing to the table. And it was in that conversation where I was guided to check with my body and to feel into what's going on there, that suddenly this exhale came, and it took me to the bottom of myself. And I just had this wow moment, you know, this very unspectacular, but very spectacular at the same time. Wow. Wow. I've never exhaled so deeply. Yeah. And ever since I'm holding this, I'm remembering and reminding myself, yeah, exhale, because you can. Yeah. It's a new thing.
Thinking about, like, I'm hearing you say that, and then knowing that, you know, I know part of your story that we'll get to share in a moment. This really feels like a possible good segue into, you talked about that it was the result of a journey.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned 7 to 10 years. And when we spoke um, a while back, one of the things that you shared with me was this fascinating thing about a 7-year cycle. And you even mentioned a 7-year reconstruction.
Yeah.
How do you feel about sharing that today?
Yeah. Yeah. I'd love to share that. In fact, I think that's my favorite story to tell. Because it's so complex. So yeah, the 7-year cycle, and maybe relevant to share at this point that I'm trained as an architect. So that was my main profession before I changed my life within that 7-year cycle. So structure and and yeah, organizational structure means a lot to me. Structure in life, structure. I think a lot in construction and deconstruction. So I actually used to think more in construction because I was trained to plan, to build, to build houses, to make them last, to make them stand. And it was at the beginning of this 7-year cycle that for the first time I started to begin even the word of deconstructing, because I was realizing that my structure wasn't really working for me. So to give a little bit of context, I had quite a decent life back then, actually. I was working in that job. I was in a nice architecture office. I had nice colleagues. I was interested in the work. I had a relationship that was very stable, very long term. And I lived in a city that I really liked, and I had a nice home. I found a nice apartment, and I made all of that for myself in a previous cycle, because I really do believe in these 7 years. It's almost like a natural kind of conclusion of things. So I had already made all of that, and I thought, oh, that's pretty good. I have everything I need, and everything is safe, and everything is, it's a stable structure. Until I realized it's not, because safety doesn't equal happiness. And safety, what I think, or what I thought back then, is good enough to hold on because it's safe, soon turned out to be just not what I wanted at the time. So nothing about those things was wrong. It was nothing about it that was like horrible or terrible. It just was not for me anymore. And I could feel that. And once you feel that within yourself, I feel there's this moment of choice to make, okay, do I listen or do I not? And in my moment, it was the question that I needed to ask myself is the structure that I made for myself, is it a home or is it a cage? Yeah.
Ooh. I just
And
needed a moment with that. Is it a home or is it a cage? Okay.
yes, I can say that now because, well, we're 7 years. We passed 7 years, so I have enough distance now to recognize these things. But the thing is that when I actually was in the cage, I didn't really see it. I didn't really see that it's a cage. I saw that it's walls and it's pillars. And I always talk about the triangle of identity that I mentioned so many times to you already. It's just a concept that I love so much, again, because it speaks so much about this idea of structure. And when I studied architecture, I learned that the most stable construction you can ever build, the most stable structure, is a triangle. So when you translate it to the triangle of life or identity, I would put at the three corners home, the place you live in, work, what you do, because we spend so much time every day with our work, and then love, relationships, the people you are with. And I feel like it was that moment at the beginning of my 7-year transformation cycle where for the first time I actually kind of zoomed out a little bit and looked at my triangle and realized, I think I need to loosen some screws, because the way this thing is built is caging me in, and I could feel it in my body. And I don't know if you've ever experienced that before, but there's a certain level of self-sabotage we can bring towards ourselves quite easily. Mm-hmm. In thinking we can hold on and being so quote unquote resilient and so creative in coping with stress that's going on with our lives, that we're kind of neglecting of our needs. And I was really good at that. So life had to push me really hard in order to let go. And my body was having a moment where it basically shut down. So within my work and within my stable structure, I started to have anxiety attacks. And I started to experience every day becoming more and more of a struggle. And needing to get out. So what was stable became more of a, oh no, it's not a choice I'm making. I need to get out, because otherwise I'll drown, or otherwise I'll be suffocated. So that's when I started to kind of allow the deconstruction to happen. Yeah, to loosen those screws, the pillars. Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot to unpack, right?
Mm.
And I'm just curious for the listeners who are tuning in right now. If you don't already have a notepad near you or something, grab one, hit pause and grab one now, because this is rich, is deep, and it's why. So let's talk about that. So you had this triangle, you had this life that was safe. And I'm going to dare to say appeared to be really good, like you were living your best life. And you said safety does not necessarily mean happy.
Mm.
And noticing that the structure that you had built needed to loosen some screws. So what does loosening, like what did loosening those screws look like in your experience? Like, what was that part of this journey like for you?
Yeah. So I'm not going to lie. It was pretty brutal for me. If I could go back again, actually, I don't even know if I would wish for that. I was just about to say, I wish it was smoother, but actually maybe I don't, because the way it went for me really showed me how quick you can undo these pillars of identity and still survive. And I feel deep down at that time, 7 years ago, I was at a point where I was, let's say, sufficiently sufficiently exhausted from trying to hold on. I always have this analogy. I used to do climbing courses, on a climbing wall, and I had no problem climbing up the wall, with an instructor holding me with a rope at the bottom. And I was really quick going up, and I was so proud of myself. And I was at the top of the wall, and I was like, okay, cool, that's it. And I'm really happy with my success and how quick I've learned it. And he called down from below and said, cool. So now just jump down, let go. And I was like, this is the way down. We didn't talk about this before. I thought I'm kind of going down the same way. And he's like, no, the only way you can get down is to let go. And Melanie, I could not do it. I was with my fingertips. I was there for minutes and 10 minutes and 15 minutes, and people were already gathering down there to watch me, and it became harder and harder because there was just something in me that just found it so impossible to give up the control. And even knowing that there is a rope, there's someone holding me, but it was not me. And I was like, that's so scary. I couldn't let go. And this is the analogy that for me fits really well for that moment, where I held on till the very last moment, until literally my fingers started to hurt, or in that sense, my body started to really scream at me, until I could make the decision. And I had a good friend at the time who actually inspired me with this triangle analogy. And he said, well, you have these 3 pillars: your home, your work, your relationships. Don't screw up more than one at once. And I was already in the middle of doing all of that, because I realized, okay, I'm trying. And I was taking out the screwdriver, and I started to loosen up one thing at a time. And it was the job for me. So the work was, I think, because it was the most painful, because the daily grind of being in a stressful environment and having this anxiety, panic attacks, hypochondria as well at that time. I really didn't trust my body. I thought I'm going to die every day. So I thought, okay, this is the first thing that needs to go. But while I was unscrewing that, and funnily enough, that one was not a one-time thing. I quit my job 3 times in the same year. It was because it was COVID times, and it was very unstable in that year. It was 2020 when I finally started that deconstruction process. But during that process, I realized, oh, okay, so now that I see this screw being undone, I can see the other 2 automatically going with it. I realized, oh yeah, actually the relationship is tied to the work. Oh yeah, and of course the place where I live in is tied to both of them. So within half a year, I realized that I got to unscrew everything. I got to blow it up, explode all the pillars. And I did that. I did that within a few months. And I left the relationship. And I got ready to leave my apartment as well. So I packed my backpack because I didn't know where to go. And it was quite tricky at the time to even get out of the country and travel, because I thought, oh, once I have my cage deconstructed, I'll be so free. And I don't have to do that employed job anymore. And I won't be bound to anyone. And I can go wherever I want to go. And then with the packed backpack, I remember that day, the backpack packed in my room, and I had my ticket in hand, and I wanted to go to Portugal. I had this calling already. I said, okay, I'm going to Portugal, and I'm going to set up my new life tomorrow. The country went into complete lockdown, so I couldn't go. So I sat there, and I lived at my parents' place at that moment in time, because I had to move out of my apartment. I actually moved apartments many, many times, because I also moved out of the apartment that I had together with my partner. So I almost feel like I was stripped down to the core. I had almost nothing to lean onto. I wasn't in my own home. I didn't have any work that I could do. And I didn't have a partner. So I felt really lost at that time, to be honest. And there was certainly a long period of darkness. Literally, it was winter at the time. Couldn't really go out to do anything. And it was really that time that literally brought me to my knees. And until there's one specific moment that I can remember that changed a lot for me inside, not around me. Everything stayed the same, but something inside, when I realized I have nowhere else to turn to. And until that moment, I was not ever really connected spiritually, or at least I never talked about myself being spiritual or believing in God or anything in that context. I was always very down to earth, very practical. But in that moment where there was just nothing else to hold on to, and I sat there with my little notebook, that was the one thing, my journal, that just got me through all of that, and my little candle and a stick of Palo Santo. And I was on my knees and I just did absolutely not know what to do. And I gave up. And I went in and I collapsed kind of into myself. And then I realized there's something there. There was a response. It was the first time ever that I think I really asked the question, like, okay, I don't know what to do. Please help. Help me. And there was something there. And it was that moment where I realized, oh gosh, there's something in me that responds to that. What is this feeling? It's this tingly feeling. And actually, when we talked about that in the beginning, about the this exhale feeling that I feel in Portugal, I think it's the same place. Never connected these two, but this place somewhere within that no one else knows. And I realized that's the only thing I can hold on to, because all the other things I needed to unscrew and I needed to deconstruct and let them collapse. And that's when the journey started. Yeah.
Beautiful. It's such a powerful story. And I remember you telling me about that. I'm dropping my pen. I remember you sharing that before. And I can still feel the depth of that new awareness. I want to call it an awakening, but I don't want to, that may not be what it is for you. That's just my interpretation of how I experienced it. But what I'm hearing you say is that it got you to this, you made some choices to like deconstruct this life, if you will, to release yourself from this cage that you were living in that was safe, but not necessarily for you anymore, where you weren't necessarily happy. And then there's this big surrender. Just letting it go, which reminds me of the moment you were talking about earlier with the only way down was to let go. And so what just dropped in for me is also sometimes the only way through to the other side is to let go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, Melanie, that's really hitting hitting the nail there. The only way through is letting go. And the only way through, in my case, which I would say is maybe not even so uncommon. I mean, it's like every one of us goes through some sort of transformation.
Yeah.
And I always say where there's big fear about a change, there's usually big potential on the other side. And it's just that I did them all at once, and it looks quite extreme, but in reality, I just pulled all these different strings. So what I learned through that is that these moments, these places of darkness or fear or pain, so everything that we can't see from here, like future that we just don't know how it's like. What happens when I quit my job? I don't know. What happens when I leave my country or move to some island? I don't know, right? And I mean, what do we really know in day life? But coming from a safe structure like that really can be quite triggering. The pain, enduring, the pain and staying with things that are just not good for us. It's these things that I realized I needed to learn to allow to meet me, and me to allow to be with it in order to get through. I was for a long time trying to get around it, and like I said, I was really good at holding on to stuff that didn't work for me. When I was in my old life, I was way too good in finding crazy methods for my work-life balance, and doing things on the side that would light me up, and having my practices, having my yoga, having my breath work, having my inner child work, having this and that. But in the end, it turned out well, and still it didn't change anything about me burning out over time. So what I really needed to do is to go to the places I didn't want to go to, is to the places where I felt the resistance. And so that's why I oftentimes say now, not back then, but now that I know the end of the story, is that shadow points to the light, right?
Yeah.
And it's the darkness that holds the potential for us, because what we can't see, we don't know. So when we only just do the things that we know, we won't really get to anywhere new. So I get this thing, this word with the leap of faith. There has to be a certain kind of there's a risk we're taking when we change something. So in my case, it was a big leap of faith, but it took me to the actual things that I needed to see, and the actual just dark spots I never looked before. And that's when the actual work began. And it was not an overnight thing. And I'd be very careful nowadays to easily dish out this advice. Oh, just take a leap of faith. If you're not happy with your life, just take a leap of faith. You need to want that. I believe that when it's the right time, you'll get a call. And it's probably call coming from somewhere within yourself that maybe you've never heard it before. And it comes in different ways and forms. But when you hear the call, you got to jump, or you got to act on it.
Do you remember a specific thing where you felt like you got the call? Because from my perspective, many of us, including me, I'm experiencing it right now, to be honest, right? Like there's this level of imprisonment, if you will, that I've co-created within all of my relationships that I am ready to break free from and to liberate myself from. And I know that there are going to be some steps to take to get there. However, I'm also, since this is a space to be transparent and authentic, the truth is it's not new information.
Yeah.
And so with you, would you say that this was something like that moment when you realized that this sense of safety, this home is actually feels more like a cage? Was that really new information, or was it really accepting what something in you already knew to be true?
Oh, I love how you framed that. And no, it was not new at all. I knew it. I sometimes say it started like a whisper. Yeah. And then at some point it became scream. And sometimes in a world that is so full of distractions and so full of pressures towards us, we just don't hear it. And on the other side of that, I feel I'm so fascinating by our body's ability to speak up like that and to call ourselves out of the cage and to keep calling, and is so creative in the methods it uses and in the language. I was like, okay, you didn't hear me so far, when I gave you subtle cues. Let me talk a little louder so you can hear me. And looking back now, having gone through that process to the other side of it, where I do feel safe again, where I do feel like, okay, I have a new house now, a new stability structure. I feel so endlessly grateful for my body shouting at me back in the days, pushing me out of the nest, not letting loose. It didn't let me loose. Sometimes it's so funny. I had moments where I was really dreading it, the voice. I was sitting with myself and asked myself, why can't I just be happy where I am? That would be so much more comfortable. There would be so much more. That would ask so much less of me. And I know people who are like that. I have friends who are like that, who wouldn't dream about leaving their job or going out. And they just have a very stable life. And I was thinking, gosh, sometimes I feel like I want that too, but I just couldn't unthink it. I couldn't unfeel it. But knowing where it has gotten me through now, I'm so glad I followed it, because there were just things that I couldn't see. Of course, I couldn't see it when I was in the darkness. There's a light that was meant for me somehow. And it's very personal. I'm not saying that everyone has to go through the same journey, but it's the personal call that matters. And this light for me just led me through a whole new construction of a new identity.
Yeah.
And it took some time. It took, like I said, it was a 7-year cycle. But I would never undo it. I would never go back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it kind of shaped you in many ways to, like the way that you're able to speak about it now, that was all a part of building your resolve in a new way into this new version of you, as you evolve. And I think about like talking about our bodies in the way that it really speaks to us, because it really has so much intelligence. And just even going back to a simple practice, well, maybe not so simple, right? But with you climbing wall, right? And that only way down is to let go. And you mentioned you held on until your fingers were hurting, right? That is such a good analogy for so many of us, how we hold on, our attachment to whatever this meaning is, or this value we've placed on this thing, whether it's our relationship with this job, this role, this title, the home, the partner, the city, right? Or town, or for you, even country, how it takes us, sometimes it takes some of us to that moment of excruciating pain before we make a decision to detach. Yeah. And my desire is for us to listen sooner when it's that whisper that you spoke of that then becomes a scream. My desire is for us to get to a place where we open up to be able to respond to the whisper so that we don't have to get to the scream. And maybe it's because I'm an optimist and all of these things. Maybe I'm being unrealistic, but I still hold that vision. And I know for some people, maybe they do or will make a new choice before it gets to a really painful scream. But so many of us don't. And it breaks my heart, you know?
And I wanted to pick up on one thing you said there. You said the relationship that we have with our jobs and our surroundings. And I feel that this is, for me, is the first step to get to the point where we can actually listen. Because there's a difference. We can hear it, right? There's a difference between hearing and listening. And I'm sure most of us who are in situations where, like we said before, we know it's not good for us. We know it intellectually, and we can hear the voice or the body speaking. But for us to listen to it, there needs to be some sort of relationship that we start building with ourselves first.
Absolutely.
And it breaks my heart to see that we are so tuned or so trained, let's say, to have relationship with our jobs, have relationship with our partners. And that's accepted, and that's encouraged. And of course, we will learn through relationships. So of course we are having a relationship. But why is it not normal to have a relationship with ourselves too? Wouldn't that be the first one to care for, if it's about our life's involvement, our happiness, our self? And to me, what I found during my transformation is that this kind of listening needs a certain form of trust. Listening and acting on what you hear, because it's one thing to hear it, and it's another thing to listen and actually act. Because what's coming from within us when we are in times of misalignment or challenges or big life transformations, oftentimes what we hear from within is different than what we hear from without.
Absolutely.
It's different from how we've been brought up. It's different from maybe what everyone else will tell us. Like when I was going around, I didn't go around, but when I started to tell my friends and family, gosh, that I'm about to quit my job, I did not get lots of support, especially not from my family. Everyone thought, oh, she's going crazy. She's giving up her, and they said that you're giving up what you worked for, you're giving up your stability. And then asking questions you just can't answer. Where will you live? What will you do? How will you support yourself? How will you make money? So that is really scary. So the capacity we need to build, I feel, is to cultivate this inner trust. And it may not be something we can do overnight or within a week. That's why maybe the gestation period of making a big move might just take some time. But it comes with the practice to be with ourselves. It comes with sitting, it comes with moving with our body, it comes with somatic practices, starting to breathe consciously, starting to pause, maybe not do something, maybe sit in meditation, but starting to learn this language and hearing and listening to that voice that slowly will build up the trust. Yeah.
that I couldn't agree more. It's almost like building this new relationship with a part of you that's been trying to speak to us for so long, right? Um, and when we have the noise, the screams that's been coming from us have been coming from external places for so long. And so learning that voice within is a new voice, or it feels new. She said it's not new because it's been there with us the whole time. Um, but it feels new. And so I can, so I agree with you in terms of that building that trust, learning to trust that voice because it's, it's like any new relationship. It requires being vulnerable. It requires there risk involved. We're not sure where it's actually going to lead. Um, and really being able to get acclimated with it and have it a chance to kind of recalibrate break to our body so that we
Mhm.
can trust it. Because when something new comes, our body tends to tense up versus lean in. And even if we know it intellectually, just like you mentioned, with all of your work that you had done as a yogi and all of these other things, you knew about breath, its power, its necessity, in all of that. But embodying that breath that you took in this new way that you said, if I believe you said was unspectacular and spectacular at the same time, it's that was a different level of trust too.
And it comes in little cycles of feedback loops. That's how I
Mm.
experienced it, because that kind of trust, that kind of breath, it's not a practiced one. It's not some where we consciously do it. Oh, I'm going to trust now. Oh, I'm going to take a deep exhale now. I'm going to relax now. These are things that the mind wants
Yeah.
us to do. And we might have a genuine intention to do it,
Mhm.
but the ones that are really leading to the real trust and the real connection with ourselves are the ones that are experienced. And so, like you said before, I liked how you said that there's always a little risk or a trust advance that we need to put in, that we need to invest when we engage with something fresh.
Yeah.
Like in a new relationship, this vulnerability, that's really what speaks to me in terms of life's involvement as well. What we don't know, we still gotta risk it first and then see.
Yeah.
And maybe for some people, what's just coming to me is that maybe for some people, depending on how how high the tolerance is towards risk, or how the readiness to invest or to risk without knowing what's going to happen, maybe the first steps are really small. Maybe it doesn't have to immediately look like making a big change. Maybe we can start with a small cycle. I'm going to give a little advance here. I'm risking a little bit of vulnerability. I see how it goes. And then I check with my experience. And that experience takes us back in the body, and it gives a feedback, and it causes sensation. And we can learn to read that and like, oh, this is how I am with that kind of response. And then we can pick that up again. And so it could form into a spiral of making bigger steps over time.
Yeah. Beautiful. And I know like there's so much to this story, this journey of you deconstructing this triangle and reshaping this new identity. But for the sake of time, tell us where you are now.
Hi, I'm Michelle Akins, executive coach and author, and I specialize in helping high capacity leaders align their inner values with their outer goals. In my 6-week group coaching program, Clarity, you'll experience a supportive space for reflection, clarity, and growth. Through powerful questions, deep listening, and guided insight, you'll uncover what's next and gain the confidence and tools to pursue it with purpose. If you're ready for a shift, let's rewrite the script together. Go to michelleakins.com and click on the tab Work with Michelle. Look forward to seeing you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the happy ending part.
Yeah, how you got here. And well, it's two parts. It's that, and then going back to the relationship, because my belief is that one that I hold firmly is that everything is relationship. And our love life is in every relationship we have, right? And so it's not just our relationship with people, but it is with people, right? But it's also with our work, it's with our food, it's with our bodies, it's with our minds, it's with our homes, our roots. And so the two-part question is, where are you now? And two, what how were you able to get to where you are now when the relationship that were your supportive community didn't understand? Because I don't want to say they didn't support it. I'm really, my heart really thinks it comes more from a place of not understanding what you were experiencing, which is hard because they're not you. And so they were responding because they wanted you to be well. And so, yeah, how did you overcome that to get to where you
Yeah, I love that question. I love it because it's not easy to answer. Thank you.
are?
A challenge.
Oh.
So, where am I now? I'm starting with this. I'm starting with the first part question. I am 7 years at the end of my 7-year cycle. Like I said before, I have constructed a new triangle for myself. I realized the deconstruction was pretty fast. The reconstruction was a bit slower. So it was a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. It started with love. So it was not the first one I unscrewed, but it was the first one I rebuilt. Yeah, my 7-year cycle is including a really nice love story that has not ended, but that has concluded, exists till today, which is so good and so stable that it allowed the other two pillars to build around it. So that's what I like about the triangle idea also. You can turn it into any direction. You have homework, love, and you can start with anyone and the others will align. You pull here at the one, the others will move. So for me, it was love. It was work that broke it first, but it was love that reconstructed that was the starting point for the new reconstruction. So I'm with my partner now, and we moved the let's say the home one was pretty flexible for a long time. Didn't end up in Portugal right away. I actually flew to Sri Lanka first for a long time. I didn't even plan to stay there for long, but I ended up being there for a couple of years. And I needed to experience, knowing now, I apparently needed to experience not being so grounded in a home for a while, that I can now really appreciate coming back to my Portugal, my beloved and dreamed of country that actually was also this that called me long ago. So I came here and I settled here, and the work is the piece that is now starting to click. So I changed my career. I transitioned out of architecture I realized there's many things I love about it, but there's more things that just are not healthy for me. There's patterns I see in the way I need to do the work that are just toxic for my system. So I am a somatic coach now. I'm a yoga teacher. I'm a Reiki practitioner. I'm a Shiatsu therapist. I'm a writer. So I'm allowing myself now to be all the different things that I want to be. I realized I actually I never wanted to be just one thing. And coming to the second question about my community and the people who couldn't understand, like how I navigated the territory of having community that does not necessarily understand unconventional moves and not behaving as expected. Is another thing where I can apply this principle of where there's darkness, there's something to look at, there's some light to bring. So the act of me having to detach first from those people, because back in the days when I started my jump, I just I couldn't maintain some relationships because I didn't know what I'm doing myself. So having voices around me that didn't understand what I'm doing just didn't help me. So I needed to cut some relationships, including the ones with my family. For almost a year, we weren't really in touch. And then it was this kind of isolation, being in a new country where I didn't know many people. Again, feeling very lonely, very left alone, again, down on my knees, again, needing to ask for help because it felt so insecure and so unstable, gave me the space to work on my relationship with myself. And it took me through inner child work. It took me through the places, again, a deeper level than I did before, almost like the next stage. You can go level 1, level 2, level 3, and go into the really nitty gritty with yourself. And I had this fantastic scenario to be almost so left alone that I had all the time and the space in the world to figure myself out. And I journaled and journaled and journaled and felt all the feelings. And that's a whole other episode. So I'm going to cut it really short. But in the end, I kind of came out as a different version, and I came out with new capacities to be with people. My expectations towards my community changed. My expectations towards my family changed. And I came out on the other side, probably mostly not expecting them to understand. And that's fine. Accepting them to be on their journey, accepting me to be on my journey. And this kind of letting them off the hook enabled us to reconnect again. So I've kept certain friends. I'm in touch again with my family. And it's another kind of feedback loop now that they can see me on the other side of my transformation. They can start to be happy for me, and they can start to understand, oh, right, that's why you did it. Because you're sitting on a cliff in Portugal and watch the ocean meeting the rocks. I get it.
Beautiful. I love the way you pull those pieces together of that story. Let me just share that. And it sounds like I have a program called Reclaim Your Love Story, where you become your own greatest love story. And so, of course, I was naturally drawn to the part where you said love wasn't the first part you deconstructed, but it was the first part that you reconstructed. And when you talked about it, what I heard based on what I know about your journey is that it wasn't the love with the partner, it was your love with you that was reconstructed, which opened space for you to love your partner in the way that you do now. And so it's that pouring in first, that going inward first, and that being with that in the darkness, looking for that light, surrendering, letting go, and trusting that voice within you. Thank you so much. Ooh,
Thank you for letting me share that.
yeah.
Yeah. It never gets old for me. Whenever I tell the story, I see a different part of it. So thank you.
Yeah, because I saw a different part of it hearing it today too, right? And so I believe that that joy and gratitude are partners with love too. And I am so grateful that you said yes to sharing your story to women all over the world through the She Chose Joy platform. And so I just want to check in with you. What are you grateful for in this moment?
Let me take a moment. Right now, in this moment, I'm just very grateful to be able to feel
Mm,
the capacity to hold all of this experience in one moment and be there and feel it all. Yeah.
And so, what are some practical ways that you consistently choose joy? Because sometimes people think it has to be this big, grand moment, but it's in those small moments that can really build our capacity to be with the joy a little longer.
Absolutely agree. Yeah. For me, what just came to me is the climbing moment again. The way I choose joy is, I think, to continuously remind myself to let go and relax. Exhale. Let go and relax. Exhale. Because it's still, it's a practice. That for me is the practice. Because we can get into a tense mode. And it's not just physical, it's mental as well. Getting a task, being overwhelmed, like relax and let go. Relax and let go. So it's the reminder of the micro letting goes every day, the micro sometimes caring a little less in a good way, to allow the ease, allow the joy. Because when I hold on too tight, I don't have space to receive it. So that's my practice. And I love that you asked me this, because I'm going to note it down and remember it.
Yeah. It's because I actively choose to check in with myself in those small ways too. Finding those moments of ease, those moments of gratitude, those moments of peace, and so it's a constant practice. Yeah. So thank you so much. How can others, like the listeners, get in touch with you to learn more about this new phase of work and how you are appreciating all the various aspects of you and redefining what work looks like, feels like, moves like for you? I have so much appreciation for the fact that you are a multi-hyphenate and that you're not attached to it having to be one thing, but playing in the space where all of it has room to show up for you as you meet it where it is. So how can listeners get in touch with you?
Yeah. Thank you for seeing that. This So yeah, I can be found on my website. It's bendyminds.com. Fun fact, a name that I chose 7 years ago in a little cafe. I can see it from here across town in the same town that I live, by intuition. And I realized, oh, it still matches. It's a name that has survived the transition. So it's my website where I share writings around somatic work, yoga, life philosophies. You'll find a lot of open-ended blog posts, thought inspirations, and there's also a free audio that you can download, which I call the Intro to Yourself. So if you're interested in starting with the inner relationship, that is the point. That's how I interpreted this sitting with the self. So that's the support for that. So
Beautiful. And I'll be sure to put the links in the show notes for you all. So, is there anything else that wants to be expressed before we wrap?
Melanie, just extreme gratitude to you and our talk together for having me and holding the space for me to share my story. That is really precious to me. Thank you.
It's my joy. I'm just so grateful that you said yes. And I'm grateful that our souls aligned in how we, like, our journey and the way we met and how we organically connected with such ease. That I can't help but be grateful. And it's another way of, actually, it's a beautiful reminder of trusting the unknown.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
trusting the unknown. 3 months ago, I didn't even know, like, we didn't even know each other's names. And yet we have this beautiful partnership and we're able to dance and play together. And I will dare say even cry together. Like, it's been safe enough to be our whole selves. And for that, I'm grateful. So
Thank you.
yeah, thank you. And so thank you all for tuning in. Wasn't that good? I mean, Elena left so many wisdom nuggets that even if you just take one, something can shift for you. And our freedom, she talked about the cage. And one of the things, we talk about a lot is that our freedom lies within our decision to say yes to who you are, yes to what you stand for, and yes to what you want. So will you stand for going within, being willing to let go so that you can find your way down? Let go so that you can find your way through. Let go so you can find your way back home to you. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode. Ta-ta.